we are working with companies and farmers and breeders all throughout the supply chain to document their material and then provide them a way to articulate to their customers what in fact those customers are buying.
This segment is brought to you by MyJane. MyJane is a community enabling women to make informed health and wellness choices about cannabis. MyJane talk with cannabis brands that care about women to learn even more about ingredient sourcing, dosing, sizing, packaging, and more. They then brought together a team of female brand ambassadors to deliver right to your door at your convenience. Go to myjane.com for more information.
Welcome to another episode of Capital Cathy, the show that talks about women who have gone through the financing process for their business. With roughly 2% of investment capital going towards women-founded businesses, Capital Cathy discusses the hurdles women face in financing and how they navigate the waters to secure funding for their companies. Today's episode, we have Eleanor Kuntz, co-founder of LeafWorks, a plant genetics company that recently launched its LeafWorks supply chain certification program. Eleanor, welcome to the show.
It's wonderful to be here.
So would I be correct in telling our listeners that LeafWorks is women-owned and women-led and women-run? What's it look like behind closed doors?
Yeah, we are a women-owned, women-run company.
Awesome. So recently, LeafWorks launched its supply chain certification, which catalogs and tracks plants in the hemp and cannabis industry through the supply chain. Is that correct?
That is correct. So Karen and I came to this really looking at the need in the botanical space, so the larger natural products industry. And we have mandates within that industry to have label fidelity, which I think we're all really happy about. So when we look at that package of echinacea or ginkgo, we're guaranteed that the plant inside that product is in fact the plant that's stated on the outside. And so that's really how LeafWorks started. And so we work with many botanicals. And then in the cannabis and hemp space, there's a huge lack of label fidelity, and there's a lot of fraud that goes on within that packaging. So that every time you buy a certain product that has a certain name to it or a certain cultivar strain of cannabis or hemp, you really have no guarantee that the next time you buy a package that has that same name on the outside, you're getting the same plant on the inside of the package. And so we started our supply chain certification to address this issue. And so what we're doing is we are working with companies and farmers and breeders all throughout the supply chain to document their material and then provide them a way to articulate to their customers what in fact those customers are buying.
That's awesome. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you actually got into the cannabis space? What were some of the jobs that you did prior to LeafWorks?
Well, both Karen and I have our PhDs in genetics, both in population level genetics, for different aspects of that field, but both of us ended up working on medicinal plants. And my first love has really always been medicinal plants. And so that's really where it started. And when I was just outside of grad school, I did a lot of consulting within the natural products space. And I did some projects in India really looking at best agricultural practices, did some supply chain work, really looking at the pathway that plants take from either being wildcrafted or cultivated and how they moved into products and then onto the shelves where consumers can have access to them. And in looking at the troubles and the pain points that occur within that industry, you really find that knowing the identity of the plants you're buying is a huge issue, especially once you get aggregated material and it's slightly processed. So instead of having whole plants, you have plants that are either in tea cuts or powders. The fraud level goes up immensely. And so we were really working within our own set of skills, realizing we had a really interesting skill set that could address some of those issues using genetics to ID those plants, even when they were very far away from their original whole plant state.
And, you mentioned something, there's a lot of fraud that goes up, and the term that, we find ourselves using is snake oil, basically. One of the things my team and I was just talking about yesterday was, what if we went around to all the bodegas in New York and grabbed these products that, say made with CBD, and if we actually tested them, what wouldn't be fraud? So it's really a crucial time in the industry right now to identify plants that are healthy and plants that are potentially toxic for you. What can you tell us about how the industry has changed from the time you've got started with cannabis to where it is now? How has the landscape changed?
Oh goodness, it's a whole nother world. We joke that it's kind of like dog years in the cannabis industry. Every 1 year is definitely more than one normal year. Most things have gotten better, to be really honest. I mean, the move into legalization, you have more transparency, you have more control on your supply chain. Of course, there's still gray markets and a whole bunch of other issues that are going on. But, the move towards legalization, either towards medicinal legislation, allowing for medicinal use, which is exceptionally important, and then in states where you have a recreational use, you really do have more and more transparency about where your plants are coming from because you're allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to socialize. You're allowed to tell your story. And the good actors are really in a position where, they can tell the good work they're doing. Most individuals that we encounter on our day-to-day are doing exceptional work. They run beautiful farms and they make beautiful product. And taking away that veil of, illegality really allows individuals to show the beauty of what they're doing. But, there is that other side where people are trying to cut corners and make a quick buck. And so it's really a time of shuffling out sort of the good actors from the individuals that are really just here, not for the plant and not for the medicine or the work, but are really here just to make a quick dollar. So there's definitely some of that. But the more transparency we have about those products and the more we have, accurate labels, just like we expect from the rest of our consumable products within the food and natural product space, the better off we'll all be.
So how does state and federal, how does that impact your job? How does that impact cannabis at large? What can, the company hope for in the future that might aid in all of this?
Yeah, well, the sort of the fractionation of the different regulatory schemes across states and even within states, depending on what county you're in various states, can really affect how your business can operate. So it's challenging because it's not a unified system. It's a true patchwork. And those patchworks don't always talk to each other very well or are excluded, state by state. You can't have interstate commerce of cannabis, but you can with hemp. And so it sort of depends on what side of the coin you're discussing specifically, but it really limits growth and it limits the ability to, expand the market in a seamless way. For us at LeafWorks, because we're a genetics-based company, we don't touch the plant. We only deal with DNA. And so we have a lot of flexibility within our world to access and interact with a lot of different organizations, which is a really amazing opportunity for us. And it's the same way that we would interact with any of the other plants that we deal with. We take in DNA samples and then analyze them from there. So we're in quite a unique position as LeafWorks where a lot of those state-by-state differences in legislation, they may govern how we interact with our customers, but they don't govern, what our customers will need, that is, but we don't really interact with our business on the day-to-day.
Right. As you mentioned, you're pretty much hands off. Your LeafWorks does not touch the plant, which makes life a little bit easier when you're, trying to operate in the industry. You don't have to jump through, some of the permitting hoops that the cultivators and the manufacturers have to go through. Can you speak on that fact, not touching the plant, and has that made fundraising for LeafWorks easier or harder?
Well, the fact of the matter is it's made it easier because most individuals still have some level of fear when it comes to investing in cannabis. And those individuals are definitely not as worried about a non-direct plant touching operation. And so it has made capital investment easier to achieve. I hope that changes because, it is plants and it is just a plant, really. And so those investments are really needed in those organizations that are doing the work on the ground with the plants themselves.
Right. I completely agree. So can you talk to us a little bit about what it was like when you started off, when you and your partner started with the concept of LeafWorks and you're probably like many entrepreneurs thinking, okay, we've got this great idea. We need funding. How are we going to set out to do this? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey there and what that was like being a woman trying to navigate these waters where we know that only 2.2% of investment capital goes to women? So what is it like to be part of that?
Well, I have to say, I think we were slightly blessed to be naive about how hard it was going to be because, we just did it. We had our idea, we were really focusing on the top 40 plants in the herbal industry. And so, cannabis was just one, cannabis/hemp, they're all, the same plant, was just one of the plants that we were focusing on. And we really were looking to solve issues within that botanical supply chain that were, very evident to a lot of individuals that were currently in that milieu and working within natural products. And so the business and the pain points that LeafWorks was solving, it wasn't very hard to convince a lot of individuals within that area of the, that are working within natural products, the need. And so that's really nice when you don't have to argue for the need. People just see where you're coming from. So that made it easier. And then we were really, really fortunate to have access to an amazing set of family and friends funders for our first round. And in our second round of funding, it was really this proof of concept. We'd had some proof of concept and individuals really understanding the power of the work that we're doing.
Gotta love those friends and family rounds.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Truly gets to the heart of any company. So, what has after your first round, after your friends and family round, what was your experience like working with venture capitalists? Positive, not so positive?
It was honestly a very mixed bag. We had a lot of, we have had and continue to have many really lovely interactions with individuals that are really interested in the science and are really interested in pushing, novel science forward. And we've had a lot of interest in individuals that are specifically focused on women-led businesses, which has been a really nice thing to, a group to interact with, which is something that I had very little understanding of prior to that fundraising round. But there are always the challenges that come up and difficult people and, people who aren't really in it for the right reasons. You do see a lot of that, but fortunately that has not been the lion's share of our experiences. Most of our experiences, although, not everything goes through, but has been positive, even when, the funding isn't something that comes through with a particular individual. A lot of times you have good mentorship or you have good interactions that positions you to do better in the next interaction. So it's always been a learning experience for us. And I have to say the negative interactions have been far fewer than the positive ones. So,
well, that's good. That always helps.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people in the industry that, fear corporate cannabis, and some people have taken a stance against raising capital, kind of I'll do it on my own mentality. And so there's a little bit of fear that goes into it. At the same time, there's hope that goes into it, whether you fundraise or you don't fundraise, the hope to make it, the hope to succeed. And so it is a mixed bag of emotions, and I can absolutely, agree with you on that point. For myself, I know that I spent lots of times in cigar bars, schmoozing and networking, and it worked for me, but I know that that's not how everyone traditionally goes about it. So it's funny. my banker was like, I was like, I don't want to go to another cigar bar. And he was like, this is where deals are made. And so, I mean, he was right to a certain extent. So,
yeah, the obligatory schmoozing can get tiresome, I have to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you and your partner set out, what was the goal? For myself, I set out for $1 million. We spoke to a woman last week who said she closed at $8 million. So what was LeafWorks' goal when you guys set out?
Well, our first target was 1.5, and we raised slightly more than that, which is really nice to start us off. And in this next round, we are fundraising for slightly more. We're fundraising for a $4 million raise at the moment. So science is not, that's one of the hard things about being a science and a biotech company. A lot of the R&D that you need in order to develop products, in order to do the good science that can back up the services that you're offering to your community, they're not cheap. So that's definitely been a hurdle for us. The mentality that we're just not going to fundraise isn't really an option in our situation.
Mm-hmm.
But understanding the depths of knowledge and the importance of that information and how it can be translated into a very useful service and tangible products for individuals that want and need those services and products has helped, gain those resources to be able to do that work.
So now that you have shareholders, what's that like? For some people that are going out there fundraising, they've never sold equity in their company, they've never given out shares, and that can be a very nerve-wracking and intimidating situation. Are you going to have an investor that's on your case all the time, that's breathing down your neck? Or are you going to have someone that, invests and can't give you consulting time? So what can you tell us about what it's like to have investors and what it's like to, kind of share the company a little bit?
Yeah, well, Karen and I have a really strict no jerks policy. So that's one
Love
thing,
it.
No money is worth dealing with someone who isn't on your team. Having an investor is really about finding someone who understands the mission of your organization and truly is in line with your mission. And so that's something that's been exceptionally important to us. It doesn't matter how much you want to give us for what kind of return or at what kind of equity stake. If you're not aligned with what we're doing and the mission of the organization, you're not an appropriate investor. And so we've been very strict about, maintaining that line for ourselves. And the other really important aspect of our investment thus far has really been focusing on individuals that bring something to the table that we're lacking. Who bring something to the business that we need help with, we need mentorship with. So it really does add to the entire team as opposed to create conflicts and challenges, because you see that all the time with investors where they come in and they have their own ideas, and instead of adding to the ship, they can kind of fractionate what's going on. And that's a very important sort of litmus for us with anyone that we're, discussing some sort of deal with, is to really make sure that not only are they mission aligned, but they also bring something to the table that adds to the entire community that we're building within the organization.
Absolutely. Teamwork makes the dream work. And so it's
yes.
Everyone's a team player. I couldn't agree more with you there. And finding, those key players can be challenging. It's taken, myself a couple of years to not find the right people, but, to learn and to grow and to truly understand your company's needs. And as you were saying, finding an investor that can help, bring something and help the company grow in areas that, you need assistance in is crucial for any business, looking to come up. So one of the next things that LeafWorks has on the horizon is the Cultivar ID strain test. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us all about that.
Well, that test is really, in a lot of ways, my pet project, because having interacted and been very tightly involved in the cannabis community for decades myself, and having family that have done breeding and done work with plants, it's really important for us to establish cultivar naming systems and directives around what we call certain things based on the history of those plants. Individuals have done a lot of work, oftentimes in extremely difficult situations throughout Prohibition, to really move these plants forward. And it's really important to honor that work and to realize that, these things didn't just pop up easily and, enter the market, that individuals really cared for those plants and moved those plant populations forward to make these interesting and unique cultivars or strains that we now identify with and love and cherish as a community. And so really making those cultivar definitions reflective of that history and having connection to those individuals that have done that work is really important to us. And that's the only way that we can then take those names and have those names mean something to the outward-facing consumer. And having consistency so that whenever you say, Blue Dream or Gelato, you know that you're getting the same plant. You're getting the same experience because you have some kind of trackable knowledge that, that thing is the thing you think it is. And so that's really important with that strain ID, that cultivar ID test. And so it's something we do with all other plants. If you're looking at a bottle and you have Echinacea purpurea, you know that that's what's in there. There's no other Echinaceas or no other fillers or, different plants in there. And so, it's important for a brand as well to have that cultivar identification, because when a customer comes and they purchase that product, they want the same thing every time. And if that experience is different because the plant inside that product is different, you're not going to garner that same kind of return customer that knows, oh, I like this thing and this is the product I'm going to continue to buy because it is, something I like and enjoy or serves me for a particular purpose. And so that cultivar ID test is really our most, I would say in some way, our most important project. So right now we're doing registrations with various organizations, farmers and breeders, to get their plants within the system. And that will launch just in this last quarter.
Nice. That's exciting. Well, congratulations for that.
It's super fun.
It kind of reminds me of Landrace Strains.
Yep.
And the history there, and there was the show Strain Hunters. I don't know if you, okay. So, I know one of them, I believe, actually passed away, on his mission to hunt for the next strain. I think he got malaria or something like that. But
yeah, he did just pass away.
Yeah. And it, what we're talking about here, do you have any Landrace strains cataloged already? What can you speak on some of the historical strains in the cannabis industry?
Yeah, we do, and that's why plants are so interesting, right? We have land races, which are populations of plants that exist in various areas of the world that have a lot of diversity within them, but unique diversity among them. And then we have specific cultivars that are more like community cultivars, so they have sort of a wider diversity, but they are held together by a certain range of phenotypes or characteristics. And then we have things that are almost sort of like elite lines or clonal strains, where you have one thing and that's the only thing that you can call by that name. And so that diversity is definitely captured within the work that we do. And we have a lot of amazing partners that have collected plants and collected populations of plants throughout the world that we work with to make, in definitive definitions of landrace populations from, various areas in northern India or populations that you would find in Colombia or in Afghanistan. So it's been a really fun collaborative project to work with organizations and seed collectors that have that material, and we definitely are including that kind of information in this next series of investigations for the cultivar ID test.
Will general consumers like myself be able to go onto LeafWorks website and do some research, or is this kind of a membership platform? If people want to get involved, if consumers like myself want to get involved or they want to learn more from LeafWorks, what are some of the resources that you offer them? You have your website and...
So we have our website, and any consumer can take any material that they have in their possession and process it and send it in to us. and we can tell them something about those plants. So, there's no need to be a commercial grower to engage with us at all. We have a lot of backyard cultivators. We're in California, so everyone can have their 6 little plants, and we have quite a few individuals that have had seeds forever or have plants, and they're just really curious. Are they what they think they are, or sometimes they have no clue what they are and they want some information about their plants. So we do interact with consumers and customers in that way, just directly, which is really fun. And as things grow, I'm sure the website will become more and more of a definitive resource for individuals. But right now it's really that interaction through the testing.
It's a growing industry, and we're all growing with it. So.
Yep.
So outside of the Cultivar ID test, what's next for LeafWorks in 2020? What can we look forward to? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, well, we're really excited about really the utilization of our gender ID test within the hemp space. We have a lot of individuals that are buying large amounts of feminized seed, and so we've really been doing a lot of seed verification to make sure that with that growing market and individuals buying, huge numbers of seeds, that they're truly getting the product and the seed they think they're getting. So not only is it homogenous, but also that all of those, if they're buying feminized seed, to make sure that all of those seeds are in fact feminized seeds. So that's one exciting thing that's happened with sort of the opening of the hemp space within natural products. And that's really opened up a lot of different areas of the country to us. And it's always fun, to interact with individuals from far and flung locations. And so that's been very exciting. And really, just pushing forward that cultivar ID, which then feeds into that supply chain so that we can really start to talk about the plants themselves and understand, get consumers to really understand what are the plants they like, especially consumers that are just coming to cannabis and are exploring. And also it's a way to really plug into appellations, because we have this system in place, and we know that certain plants grow better in different areas. But until we really get a handle on those plants themselves, it's hard to communicate that and really document that. And so working with groups on appellations has been something that's really exciting for us right now, and is work that we're doing that will continue in 2020.
Well, that is exciting, and we definitely look forward to that. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about LeafWorks, or know about yourself, or anything about the capital raising process? Any last words of hope and inspiration you can leave with us?
Oh, well, I'm just always so excited to talk about medicinal plants, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about all of the fervor around hemp and cannabis at the moment, because truly they are plants that can introduce us and remind us of all of the other amazing plants that we utilize in our day-to-day lives and that we should get to know better, that we kind of take for granted. And so that's one thing that I always like to leave people, that, hemp and cannabis is really cool and sexy, but they're not the only plants out there that are really amazing and doing really hard work for us. And so I really like to think about them as sort of gateway plants to the rest of the herbal and plant world.
It's sexy? Science.
Yes.
Well, awesome. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It's been really fun. And obviously I love science. So talking about science is always great, and really understanding how science can help in a bigger way. And it's not just for, the knowledge is not just for knowledge's sake. It's really applicable to a lot of things. It's a really fun thing to communicate. So thanks for that opportunity.
This segment is brought to you by the Landman Office, the Emerald Triangle's premier land agents. The Landman Office is a full-service real estate company who uniquely specializes in rural, off-grid, and cultivation properties. Their versatile agents are knowledgeable in the sale and purchase of residential, commercial, industrial, investment, development, off-grid, cultivation, and timberland properties. Go to humboldtlandman.com for more information.